Hello, party people! How's it going? Mary Tully here for Tully's Training. Today we are going to be talking about how to train your pit bull. So if you've ever been on our website, we have a series of articles that are breed specific, and that's something that we're always adding to, and we just most recently added this article that you see the link to in the title of this video, and that is how to train your pit bull. So pit bulls are, when we're talking about a pit bull, we're not talking about a very super specific breed of dog. We're using a very broad brush with that term. So pit bulls kind of refer to a wide variety of, different dogs. And a lot of people misidentify pit bulls pretty frequently. So they might see a bull terrier and think it's a pit bull, or they might see a bulldog and think it's a pit bull. But generally, what we're talking about when we're using this very broad category of pit bull is a medium-sized dog, usually somewhere in the neighborhood of, 30 to 70 pounds, usually. I know some of them are smaller and some of them are bigger, but usually that's what we're talking about. We're talking about a dog that has a huge head, big old black head, and usually a very happy expression, and lots of rippling muscles. They have big chest, and they have big bicep, big leg muscles, and they're just all muscle. You can see all their veins, you can see all their muscles, you can see a lot of their, kind of skeletal structure in there too. They don't have too much fat on their body. And then if you kind of keep traveling down their body, usually you will see a very frantically wagging tail. So pit bulls tend to be very happy. They tend to be very enthusiastic. They tend to be very easily excited, and they also tend to have no regard for personal space. So pit bulls, they want to be in your lap, they want to be on your face, they want to know what you're doing, they want to be involved in what you're doing. I think that most many pit bulls that I've worked with, if they could, they would just climb inside your mouth and just live in your face if they could. And it doesn't even matter if you've ever met them before. If you have a friend that has a pit and you go to their house, if that dog can figure out a way to get into your lap, he's probably going to get into your lap. And then when you leave, he's going to follow you out the door and get in your car if he can, and maybe go home with you, and just be there. They really love to be around people, most of them, and they tend to just really have a zest for life. Everything in life is just so exciting and so happy. Getting up from the couch and walking to the bathroom, so exciting for many pit bulls. So today we're going to talk a little bit about the history of the pit bull. We're going to talk about some kind of specific areas that are really important to raising a good pit bull. And then we're going to kind of wrap up with some specific training strategies for pits if you have one or if you're looking to get one. So the history of the pit bull is, a bit of a sad one, unfortunately. Pit bulls originated, I'm looking at notes, by the way, I don't want to mess any of this up. This blog post was not written by myself. It was written by our trainer, Claire, who is the biggest pit bull fan on the face of the planet. So I want to make sure that I get all of her carefully researched information out there to you properly. So I'm going to be checking her notes throughout this post, as I do with everyone. I don't know why I feel the need to keep telling everybody. But, all right, so pit bulls, they originated in the UK in the 1800s, and they quickly made their way to the United States. So, initially they were bred, from combining a bulldog and a terrier. And they were really bred for baiting and dogfighting. So the dogfighting industry is still around. It is still alive and well. And it's something that we see about in the news a lot, and it's also something if you work in the dog world, or if you, are a part of it in any way, you probably have seen dogs that have been confiscated from fighting rings. You've probably, if you're a trainer, worked with bait dogs that have been rehabilitated and adopted out. And if you've spent any time in a shelter, especially one that's run by a city, there's a good chance that you've also seen the fighting dogs come through. So it's something that's really, really sad. I have seen a few fighting dogs. I've seen lots of bait dogs. And it's such a shame what happens to those dogs. But one thing that's kind of awesome that's been happening in the last decade or so is they've become really popular as pets. So there are a lot of pit bulls now that are living in homes and doing pretty well. They're doing really, really well. So it's really funny because, you know, we know their history, but if you've ever met a pit bull, it's kind of hard to believe it because they typically just are so sweet, and a lot of them are just total couch potatoes and get along great with other dogs and kids and people and all that stuff. So it's definitely something that you want to know about and educate yourself about, especially if you're thinking about adding one to your family, because education is really important. But it's also just, it's not something you want to give too much power to. So you know, kind of basically, you know, in the beginning of the, you know, in the early 1920s, you know, really into the 70s, pit bulls weren't really known as dogs that were dangerous. If you look at, you know, old ads for products, you'll see pit bulls, you know, kind of featured as like the family dog. And if you know, Little Rascals, when Little Rascals came out, that was a pit bull. So really in the 1980s is when we start to see their reputation go by the wayside, 1970s, 1980s. And that's when people started really looking at them as dangerous, started giving their fighting history a lot more credit. And, you know, we're still recovering from that. So, but yeah, they've become a lot more popular as pets. If you've been to Los Angeles, you have seen pit bulls everywhere. If you've been to an animal shelter, especially in an urban area, you'll see lots of pits. Most of them do not come from fighting situations. The overwhelming majority of them are just pets, and they do really well for the most part. So whenever you are adding any dog to your family, socialization is something that's really important, but especially if you're getting a pit bull puppy, you want to make sure that you know what socialization is and how to do it the right way. So when I talk about socialization, I don't just mean how much does your dog like people and how much does your dog like dogs. I mean the developmental phase that every single puppy goes through, in which they're learning about the world around them and they're learning what's a threat and what's not. So when you have a dog like a pit bull, or, you know, any other dog that might have a questionable, you know, albeit untrue, but a questionable reputation in the community. So Dobermans, German Shepherds, Rottweilers, dogs that are over 40 pounds, really, especially, you know, in LA where a lot of dogs are really small. That dog has to kind of, unfortunately, be perfect, because people are going to look at them differently, they're going to judge them more harshly, and they're going to assume malice first. So whenever you decide to take on a pit bull, unfortunately, that's also something that you are going to have to deal with. And so we want to make sure that we're equipping our dogs with every single, you know, coping skill and social skill that we can, so that they can go through life and not have to deal with any of this bias and any of this, you know, judgmental nonsense that we hate to even acknowledge, but we have to because it's reality. So you want to make sure that your pit bull is being socialized to everything environmentally that it needs to be. Skateboards, anything that moves, like cars, skateboards, bikes, rolling suitcases, dollies, you know, trucks, like fire trucks, garbage trucks, ambulances. You know, if you live in a rural area, make sure they're exposed to livestock and chickens and all different kinds of things. Basically, you want to figure out, what does your environment consist of? Where do you live? And make sure that you are kind of, you know, purposely exposing your puppy to all of those different things, and you're teaching them how to interact with all those things. So if we're meeting chickens, we do not chase the chickens. If you want to be close to the chickens, then you need to be gentle and sweet. If you're going to go after them and chase them, then guess what? You don't get to say hi. So, you know, kind of teaching them how to interact with all those different types of environmental things. Now, when it comes to socializing them with people and with dogs, super, super important. With dogs, do not let your pit bull puppy only play with other pit bulls, because pit bulls can play a little rough. They are a bully breed, and they love to body slam, and they love to tackle, and they love to vocalize a lot. And, you know, with other pets, that's fine. But just like all of us interact differently with different friends that we have, pit bulls need to learn to interact differently with different dogs. And they need to learn how to read body language appropriately. So you want to have your puppy interact with older dogs of different breeds and sizes, younger dogs of different breeds and sizes, different temperaments, all of it. And you want to make sure that you're teaching your puppy good manners. So if they can play nicely, then they can keep playing. If they are going to get rough and be rude and not, you know, kind of have good manners, then they don't get to play anymore. So you also want to introduce them to lots of different types of people. You want to make sure they meet lots of different types of men with beards, men that are bald, men that have a lot of hair, men that are tall, men that are short, women of all different shapes and sizes, children, elderly people, people in wheelchairs, people with disabilities. Because again, unfortunately, if a Cocker Spaniel barks at some man walking down the street with a beard, that is not going to be interpreted the same way as if your pit bull barks. So you want to make sure that they are chill with any type of person that they could ever meet. Homeless people, you know, anyone, anybody. And the best way to do that is just to take them to public places as often as you can, because the world is diverse, and if you just let them be a part of it, then they will be exposed to all of that diversity just on their own. So when it comes to mental enrichment and exercise are important for any dog, of course. So kind of what I want to focus on with pits is giving them appropriate mental enrichment and exercise, and giving them outlets for their specific type of energy. So pit bulls love to pull. Giving them outlets for that pulling is awesome. So a couple of ideas on the ways that people do that is you can actually take a carting class, where you hook your dog up to a cart that they pull around. It's awesome. Another great idea for exercising a pit bull is to put a harness on them, get on your skateboard, get on your rollerblades, and let them go to town. I would never do that ever. I'd be way too scared, but if you're brave and you think your dog can handle it, they will love it for sure. You also want to, as far as enrichment goes, kind of giving them toys and enrichment items that they can destroy. So Kongs are great because a pit bull, you can stuff that Kong with some really yummy stuff, pop it in the freezer, give it to your pit. They can throw it against the wall, they can chew on it, they can really beat the crap out of it, and you know, it's not going to matter. The Kong can handle it. Also, maybe filling like a cereal box full of treats, tape it shut, throw it in the backyard with your dog, let them go to town. So giving them toys and specific items that they can tear up and they can destroy and they can beat up is really, really helpful. And it sets you up to be able to teach them appropriate behavior in other situations. So you can destroy this, but this you have to be gentle with. So you want to make sure that you're being fair to your pit bull. You want to make sure that you're looking at your dog and you're thinking, what does this dog need? You're providing that. And then once that kind of has been provided for, you're in a position where you can ask them to, you know, have good manners kind of in another situation. So if I put on this harness and I put on my rollerblades, you can pull me and we can go. But if I put on this other harness and this other leash and I have on my sneakers, you need to walk next to me nicely with a loose leash. Does that make sense? So, you know, kind of teaching them those different contexts. When it comes to training, the two biggest areas that we see pit bulls having trouble with are, well, really it's kind of one area. It's just impulse control. So that means that if your pit is on leash, a lot of them pull really hard. If you open the door and you have guests over, they rush your guests and you just tackle them. If you are walking down the street and they have a dog that they want to say hi to, they just run over as fast as they can. They get right up in the dog's face and they just immediately want to start wrestling. And we want to teach your pit not to do that because, first of all, it's awful if you're the other person because they're so big, and who wants to get knocked over by a dog? Not a fun experience. It's also not fun for you, and you're going to be a lot less likely to give them that exercise that they need, because if your dog is dragging you down the road, walking is not fun. I'm not going to take you for a walk because I'm going to fall down. It's terrible. It's raining. It's slippery, whatever. And also, again, we would not want for your pit to run up to somebody excitedly and for somebody to mistake that as aggression. So teaching them impulse control is really, really important, and it is possible, but it just takes a lot of consistency and a lot of kind of planning ahead. So if you want to teach your pit bull to walk nicely on the leash, the wrong way to do that would be to come home from work. Your dog's been home alone all day, and now I'm going to put your leash on. We're going to go to the park and we're going to practice. That's not the best way to teach your pit bull how to walk on a leash. The better way would be to give them lots of exercise beforehand. Start in your house and be really consistent and train accordingly. When it comes to greeting them at the door, you essentially want to teach them kind of overall that the quickest way for them to get what they want is to do what you've asked. So if they want to say hi to somebody, then they need to sit and stay and wait for that person to come into the door. And if they do that, then they get to go say hi and they get to greet. If they go and say hi and greet and they're still too excited, they're going to have to go back to their bed, their mat, and they're going to have to stay there until they can calm down and kind of get a hold of themselves. So moral of the story, if you calm down and you relax and you keep all 4 paws on the ground, you get to say hi to people and be right next to them, which is what you want. If you can't do that, no problem, but you're gonna, I don't know why. So that is kind of, the overall kind of quick down and dirty version of Claire's amazing blog post. If you want more detailed information, I would recommend that you check it out. The link is posted right in the title of this post. And, pit bulls are great dogs. As with any dog, do your research and involve a trainer in selecting an individual dog before you bring it home if you can. Call us, we will help you. If not us, talk to some other positive reinforcement trainer, because the most important decision that you can make in regarding to your dog is to bring home the right one the first time. So that is all I have for you guys today. Kyle will be here on Friday, and I will be back next week with some more fun topics. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week and a great weekend, and Kyle will see you on Friday. All right, have a good one.